Hello everybody, it's Josie here. I'm going to be doing my wrap up for the Queerlit Readathon. This was round 5, I believe, of the readathon. I had a great time reading, read some fantastic books that I've been wanting to and getting and kind of dying to read. So without further ado, let's talk about the books. So the first book I'm going to talk about is this one over here, is This Lie Will Kill You. I am in a very thriller, horror mood at the moment. I'm probably going to be reading a lot more thrillers and horrors. It's just kind of what I feel like reading. And this book kind of fit in there perfectly. This is a YA thriller. It was billed for fans of, oh God, what was that other book called? One of Us is Lying, which I actually really enjoyed. And I'll probably need to get to the follow-up on that one. But and yes, I agree with that. So if you kind of like that YA kind of thrillery, slightly, I suppose, Mean Girls kind of thing. So the premise of this is that a boy died a year previous. And you have these 5 high school kids that all get sent these invitations to compete for a scholarship. But they've got to come to this kind of house, because that's what you do. You come to this house in the middle of nowhere. And, well, it's not really in the middle of nowhere, but you come to this house and you compete. And it's all mysterious, and they're told that it's like a murder mystery weekend, and they've got to compete to find out who the murderer is. So you know that things are going to go wrong and that it isn't as it seems. And that's exactly what happens. It was fun. I think you can kind of guess who's behind it and what's happening, but there were a couple of twists and turns that I really liked. Yeah, I just thought it was cool. I think obviously I can't say too much about the storyline, I'm just going to give it away, but what I did also like here was this also focused very much on on bullying and what that does to people and ostracizing people and how that affects them and the consequences that can have. So I think that was good to have, a bit of a more serious message underneath kind of just a teen, I know what you did last summer kind of thriller. So yeah, I enjoyed this. The queer element, when I was reading about this, it said that they were queer characters. There's a character who is in love with her best friend, and I'm not giving much away because that's the first couple of chapters, so her best friend's a girl. So you've got that element, and then one of the other male characters is also in love with his best friend. There's no real kind of romance in the sense that sort of romance on the page. There's obviously relationships that have gone on and things that have happened, but it is, so you do have 2 main characters that are queer spectrum characters, at least 2. So I enjoyed this. It was fun. Yeah, I had a good time reading it. It's kind of right up my alley these days. Then the next one I'm going to talk about is this lovely book here, is The Deep by River Solomon. River Solomon has written a beautiful, lyrical book about, oh God, I find this book really hard to explain and articulate. So to say it's about mermaids just I don't think does it justice, but Yetu, the main kind of character, it's like a mermaid-esque clan. But also the premise for this is that this kind of, I guess, species of aquatic mermaid type colony was created by the African slaves that were thrown overboard from slaving ships. So it has a very kind of serious message in the background as well. But what the premise of this is that Yetu is like the memory keeper of her clan, and she remembers, what happened to the people throughout time, and she passes on these memories, and it's a really important job, and she's kind of struggling with it. There is a lovely kind of queer romance element in this as well. I just found it so beautiful and so lyrically written. It's definitely a book that I will read again. It's very short, and I suppose it kind of classifies as a novella, but I really thought it was beautiful. It was kind of a 5-star prediction, and it didn't let me down. Rivers writes beautifully. Their work is gorgeous. And yeah, I highly recommend reading this. I know I probably did a terrible job of doing the synopsis, but I just think it's one of those books you need to read. It's just lovely. And then the last one, was it the last one? I listened to something on audio. Oh, I'm currently still listening to something. So that's kind of the last one. So I did start Sarah Jane Grace's Tranny on audiobook. It is fantastic. I'm kind of a third of the way through, and Sarah Jane Grace is a lead singer of the band Against Me, and she is a transgender woman, and this is her autobiography, and it's read by her as well, which is fantastic, but I haven't quite finished it, so I might include it in a different wrap-up, but so far so good. It's really, really good. I thought it was going to be, and I'm really enjoying it. Heartbreaking, but also fantastic autobiography, and I love autobiographies that are read by the author. So that's the other book that I was actually reading for the non-fiction portion of the lit. But the last one that I finished and read in physical form is this one over here. This is Caitlin R. Kiernan's The Drowning Girl. I am a massive Caitlin R. Kiernan fan. I love kind of weird horror, sci-fi fantasy type books, and psychological thrillers and that, and Caitlin R. Kiernan's work really sits perfectly. I'm a huge Poppy Z. Bright fan, and I am, like I said, very much in the mood for these kind of books. I've actually ordered a couple more. I might do a video at some point on sort of just strange, weird, horror, psychological thriller type, scary, creepy, nasty books that I kind of like. And this one is just, and there was another 5-star prediction. I love all of Caitlin R. Kiernan's work, and I love this as well. This actually deals a lot with, I guess, in the mind, sort of mental illness almost, and, what is real, what isn't real. That is kind of a recurring theme in Caitlin's work as well. And it centers on a girl called Imp. Her real name is India, but if her initials are Imp, so everybody calls her Imp. And she is basically, so it's called The Drowning Girl, a memoir inside. So the narrative is her writing down the story of what happened to her, and she's sort of telling it, but it weaves in and out. So she's talking to you as the reader, then she's writing as she's writing. You get snippets of fiction that the character wrote. You've got this storyline about this girl that she discovers on the side of the road, the drowning girl, her fascination with a particular artist and his painting called The Drowning Girl, and how that kind of dovetails with this girl she sees on the side of the road and kind of takes home. There's also this narrative of her family has a history of suicide and mental illness, her mother and her grandmother. So it's this idea that she is, working through that in her head. Depression, medication, that kind of thing. So if anything that's triggering for you, then know that going in, and obviously suicide as well. And then there is also Caitlin R. Kiernan, all of her work has so far that I've read definitely has queer female protagonists, and this is no exception. Imp is queer. She has a kind of a couple of relationships throughout this book. And her relationship with Ablin, who she meets at the side of the road. Ablin's character is transgender, female transgender. So there's some great rep in this book as well, and I love the fact that not a lot of horror kind of thriller books of this ilk have queer female protagonists and writers, which is just wonderful. And yeah, I am a massive Caitlin R. Kiernan fan, if that hasn't been made clear so far. And I hugely recommend her books. But yeah, I love this. Again, this was a 5-star read. This is one that, again, I will definitely reread. It's one of the books that I hang on to. I hang on to Caitlin's books, and yeah, I love this. And I'm on the hunt for more of her work. It's actually surprisingly hard to not hard to find. You can kind of go on Amazon and they have it, but a lot of it is imported from the States, secondhand, incredibly expensive to buy, but worth it because I just love her work. And that is it. So also my colour for the rainbow was blue. Because, oh no, I'm lying. I am a liar. I read one more book. I listened to one book on audio. And it was called Hatfield to Float by, was it Helena Fox? And that book was also gorgeous and with a very blue cover. That's what it reminded me. And heartbreaking. So that book was set in Australia, which I quite like. I love reading books that aren't necessarily set in the US and in the UK, where most of the literature tends to be set. And it follows a girl who, the beginning of the story is her father she's dealing with the disappearance of her father, and disappearance at death. She's dealing with her own mental health issues, again, a bit like in The Drowning Girl. She's dealing with trying to figure out, so in the very beginning she kisses her best friend, who is a girl, so she's working through that as well. And it's a beautifully kind of told coming of age story. She's still in high school. She's trying to work out what she wants to do with the rest of her life, you know, who she is, you know, all these memories of her father that keep coming back. And she meets this boy who is a friend, and they have this gorgeous kind of friendship relationship. So it reminded me a little bit of Alice Oseman's Radio Silence in that regard, which I think is a good comparison. Radio Silence I love that book, so anything that reminds me of Radio Silence is a good thing. I really loved it. I would recommend reading it. Again, anything, if any sort of mental health or you know, death of a loved one, if that's triggering, then just know that that's in there. But I think it's a very beautifully written, wonderful story with depth to it, and just you know, kind of an insight into her mind and maybe that disordered thinking as well. It reminded me of Christina Leno's You Must Not Miss a little bit as well. So if you like that book, I think you'd like Hatfield to Float. But yeah, I thought it was wonderful. So all in all, all my blue books of all this readathon have turned out really well. Again, thank you so much to the host Kathy Rogan and the guest host for this round. It was wonderful. If you partook, let me know what you read, if you have any recommendations from it, and if you've read any of these books, let me know. And as always, like I said, I'm very much in a thriller, weird horror kind of mood at the moment moving forward. So if you know any authors that are similar to Caitlin or Kiernan or Poppy C. Bright, anything like that, let me know in the comments. I'm always gonna love to read more of that. And yeah, so that's me. Thank you all for watching. Hope you're all well and safe, and I will speak to you all again very soon. Bye bye.